What kind of man is so powerful that entire governments would literally rather negotiate with him than fight him? Seriously, imagine a single human being whose very existence permanently alters the geopolitical balance of the globe. Today, we aren't looking at a rogue nation, a military alliance, or a weapon of mass destruction. We're looking at a man. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're conducting a classified threat assessment on Yujiro Hanma. Now, if you follow the Baki series, you might think of him just as a martial artist. But let me tell you, that classification is dangerously inadequate. We have to analyze him for what he truly is, a walking geopolitical natural disaster. Here's the dossier briefing for this assessment. We'll be examining this anomaly across 6 parameters. First, the strongest creature alive. 2, the monster-defeating armies. 3, why governments fear him. 4, the psychological terror. 5, stronger than a nation? And finally, 6, the ultimate untamable force. Let's open the file. Section 1, the strongest creature alive, anomaly identification. A walking nuclear warhead. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. Official in-universe documentation, we're talking highly classified files from global intelligence agencies, literally classifies him using this exact phrasing. They are taking the micro scale of a single man of flesh and bone and elevating his destructive yield to the macro scale of our most devastating weapons of mass destruction. A nuke can level a city, right? Well, Yujiro can hold the entire world hostage. So how does he operate? Essentially as a freelance mercenary. But he operates completely autonomously. He doesn't have a handler, he's only deployed for deadly, absolute last resort missions, and he commands this unknown but completely exorbitant price tag that affords him limitless, globe-trotting luxury. But here is the most crucial detail. He recognizes no global authority. Ordinary power scaling, international laws, they simply do not apply to him. He's a sovereign entity unto himself. He answers to no flag and no god. Section 2. The monster-defeating armies, historical precedents. You see, destroying armies is actually a family tradition. Consider his father, Yujiro Hanma. During World War II, on a tiny island in Okinawa, Yujiro achieved an utterly impossible solo victory. He didn't just survive, he systematically defeated 2,000 fully armed American soldiers and dismantled a U.S. naval battleship group single-handedly. And he did it using 0 weapons. The terrifying precedent for human supremacy over mechanized warfare, it started right here, in the bloodline. But Yujiro escalated this threat to an entirely new paradigm. At the mere age of 16, Yujiro entered the brutal battlefields of the Vietnam War completely unarmed. He didn't even pick a side. He just wandered the jungle, fighting heavily armed soldiers from both factions, using stealth, hypersonic speed, and just unimaginable brutality. He systematically hunted and dismantled elite U.S. forces. We're talking Green Berets, Delta Force, Navy SEALs. He turned apex military squads into prey, rendering fully equipped infantries completely useless against a teenager. The terrifying takeaway here is just this. Conventional warfare is completely meaningless against him. Think about it. How do you shoot a man who moves at hypersonic speeds, vanishing from your sights before your finger can even squeeze the trigger? How do you bomb a target that instinctively senses danger, evading the blast radius before the munition even leaves the bay? Tanks, rifles, artillery, they aren't just ineffective, they become entirely irrelevant. Section 3. Why governments fear him. The geopolitical paradigm shift. This creates a horrifying reality for global infrastructure. Conventional diplomacy relies on armies, economic sanctions, and secure borders to exert power, right? But Yujiro diplomacy, that relies on absolute non-aggression oaths and total submission. Nations aren't negotiating with him. They're forced to make absurd, fearful concessions simply to ensure this man doesn't decide to topple their governments out of sheer boredom. Look at the Baki universe. Every sitting U.S. president is briefed on a highly classified, completely humiliating necessity. Regardless of their political affiliation, leaders from Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump have all been forced into a secret room with Yujiro. Stripped of their Secret Service details, the most powerful men on Earth must secretly swear an oath of absolute friendship and non-aggression to a single citizen. This isn't diplomacy. It's a desperate, groveling measure to avoid national destruction. Section 4. The psychological terror. Fear as a weapon. His physical fists are actually just a secondary threat. His primary weapon is how his sheer presence operates on the human mind. First off, he emits this menacing, paralyzing aura. The human nervous system instinctively detects him as an apex predator, an inescapable existential threat. This induces sheer primal madness. We've seen highly trained, fully armed guards literally turn their weapons on themselves in pure terror just from standing near him. He completely breaks an opponent's will, ending the fight in their mind before a single muscle even twitches. And hey, if the psychological pressure isn't enough to shatter an army, there's a horrifying physical manifestation of his overwhelming superiority. This is his ultimate, ungodly trump card. It's known as the demon back. It is an outright anatomical impossibility, where the muscles on his back contort and flex to form the visceral visage of a grinning demon. When this happens, his already incomprehensible strength, speed, durability, and bloodlust, they don't just increase, they are exponentially multiplied. This biological anomaly sheds the very last remnants of his humanity, elevating him into an unstoppable force of nature. Section 5. Stronger than a nation? The nuclear dilemma. The logistics of a targeted assassination against this guy are a complete tactical nightmare. He moves at speeds that defy tracking systems. His musculature is so incredibly dense that he's entirely immune to conventional firearms. High-caliber sniper rounds practically bounce off his skin. Furthermore, he deliberately resides in highly populated urban centers, which turns millions of civilians into human shields. And even if you somehow line up a shot, he possesses extrasensory perception. He instinctively senses lethal intent even while he's fast asleep. A conventional strike is statistically impossible. Which naturally brings governments to the ultimate, darkest consideration, the nuclear option. But military advisors in the series state a chilling reality. They say the bomb still might not work. You'd have to catch him off guard, and he's always on guard. Dropping a nuclear weapon on him would cause millions of unacceptable civilian casualties. And the worst part? By the time the missile actually detonated, his hypersonic speed ensures he'd already be miles away, entirely unharmed, and now, out for revenge. This leads us to the grim conclusion that intelligence agencies arrived at the very day he was born. The geopolitical balance of power is permanently shattered. In the Baku universe, entire nations secretly initiated nuclear arms programs purely in a desperate, ultimately futile attempt to counter a single human infant. He is the ultimate weapon, one that simply cannot be countered, disarmed, or destroyed. Section 6. The ultimate untamable force, beyond human systems. Let's look at the terrifying reality of the ogre. Governments don't fear Yujiro Hanma simply because he's a criminal, or a mercenary, or a murderer. They fear him because of what he represents to human society. He cannot be controlled by their laws. He cannot be intimidated by their massive nuclear arsenals. He stands entirely above every single human-made system of order, control, and governance. He is the literal embodiment of total, unchecked freedom and absolute dominance. When you put all this evidence together, when you really look at the broken treaties, the defeated battalions, and the paralyzed world leaders, you realize a truly terrifying truth. In the world of Baki, the strongest military isn't an army. It's Yujiro Hanma, a man who conquered the modern world with nothing but his bare hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It really makes you wonder, right? What would our world actually look like if a force like this truly existed among us? Think about that, and I'll catch you in the next one.